This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And hey, Shane, sometimes we get them right. Sometimes we get them wrong. Last Saturday against Texas Tech was not great. We're going to recap the struggles at the end of the game. You know, you can get it to a 2-point game with a 3-pointer, and then it spirals out of control. But then we saw what happened. Arizona on Tuesday night comes back, goes to Stillwater, and beats up on a pretty bad Oklahoma State team. So I'll take a split. Anytime you get a road split, as far as I'm concerned, that's okay.
Yeah, generally speaking, I agree with you. And I think I will say that when this team does make its 3-point shots, they're very, very tough to beat. With that said, got a lot of control against Texas Tech. I mean, losing a tough, close game on the road to a good team, a team that probably should be in the top 25, or I know is close to it. No shame in that, the way it ended. We'll talk about a little bit more. Rebounded against Oklahoma State. You know, that game, just watching it on TV, Eric, it kind of reminded me of just some of the Pac-12 venues that are like half full, like Cal or Stanford, like where it's just all you hear are the student sections, with their chants when Arizona has the ball, and it just felt like there wasn't much of a home court edge. So I kind of felt at home in that way, even though they haven't played at Oklahoma State in forever. But 6-1 in the Big 12, we'll take it, and the schedule only gets tougher from here.
All right, let's talk about a lot of things. Let's get right into it. This is buy or sell. Let's get to number one, Shane. I mean, let's be honest. Arizona's struggles late in close games are a major cause for concern. Buy or sell.
Yeah, we'll definitely ask. I don't think you plugged our guest Matt Muehlebach coming up later. So, Bob,
thank you.
No, that's good. I got you. We'll talk to him about it, and he's always a great insight. Speaking of guys who can make 3-point shots, it's been a theme, Eric. That Texas Tech game in particular, for 35 minutes, Arizona didn't play its best basketball. Right, they're getting out rebounded and didn't shoot very well, but they were still in it with 3-point game, 5 minutes left. And they just start chucking threes. 8 out of their next 9 attempts for 3-point attempts. Don't get me wrong. They shouldn't pass up an open shot, and they have a good shooter. Now, that's fine. And are they capable of shooting the three well on any given night, like we saw against Oklahoma State? Of course. But between the second half of the Baylor game and the entire Texas Tech game, do you know how many threes Arizona made? 3. 3 3-pointers.
Wow.
So Arizona is at its best when it's attacking, when they're trying to get teams into foul trouble, attempting high percentage 2-point field goals. Here's some stats for you. Arizona is 56.6% from 2-point range this season. That's 35th out of all 364 Division I teams. They are 32.4% from 3-point range, which is 229th in Division I. Caleb Love is about 22% better from 2 than he is from 3. Katie Lewis is 58% from 2-point range, 19.4% from 3. Trey Townsend, should call him Deuce Townsend, 58% from 2, 24% from 3. Now, obviously, almost everyone's going to have a better 2-point percentage than 3, but those gaps are enormous. Anthony Del Orso is a great 3-point shooter. Jaden Bradley, Carter Bryant are decent. I don't expect the other guys, especially Caleb Love, to turn down a wide open look from outside. But Arizona, in order to finish these games better, and they haven't done it. They haven't finished games well in a lot of wins either. But they have to understand and embrace their strengths and acknowledge their weaknesses. And if that continues to not happen, like it did at Texas Tech, especially in tight games, it's going to lead to more Big 12 losses as the schedule gets tougher, because it's about to, and it's probably going to lead to another early exit in the NCAA tournament. So that is a concern of mine for sure, by 100%.
Shane, listen, at this point, as far as I'm concerned, getting to the NCAA tournament from where I thought they were, end of December, I mean, that's a great thing. 6-1 in conference is awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't like the collapse at Cincinnati. I didn't like the end of game at West Virginia. The fact is they won both those games. The Texas Tech one, I did not think that they would win that game. You were more optimistic than I was.
I was.
And Arizona, as you said, did not play that well, and they were in the game. If Del
Mhm.
Orso makes that three-pointer, where he was wide open, it's a 2-point game,
Sure.
and we're talking about a lot here, regardless of how it plays out. After that, they didn't score the rest of the game. It just they just fell apart. Make the tournament. I mean, we'll talk about with Matt kind of our expectation. What makes a successful season.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to spin it a different way. The absolute best case for Arizona would be what, as far as seeding goes? Not as far like everything goes right. Realistically. I mean, if they win out, it's
If they
probably
win,
not happening.
if they win all the rest of their, I mean, are we talking if they win all the rest of their games, which we're not going to predict, but if they were talking that, then they could still get a 1 or a 2. If they win
No way
out,
they're getting a 1 seed.
if they, no, 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 listen, you asked. I don't think they're getting a
Fair.
1 seed, but if they win all the rest of their games, lose 1 game in the Big 12, win the Big 12 tournament, lose 7 games, yeah, they can get a 1, maybe a 2.
Oh, okay. Well, but
They're not
realistic.
going to, but are you talking
No.
about realistic? Like, what's a
Okay.
realistic best case
Realistically,
scenario?
what's the best case scenario?
4, maybe a 3 if they get hot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right
I
now
think a 3 could be.
you look
Yeah.
at the brackets that are out right now. And bracketmatrix.com is a great resource. They takes all the brackets from all the interwebs and puts them together. Arizona's about a 6 right now, maybe a 7. I think that's about right. It's about fair. But they're going to have they have 2 games against Iowa State. They play Houston, which just destroyed Utah just now, and as we're recording this, and they're still undefeated in the conference. They're at Kansas. They got the Big 12 tournament coming up. They have very few bad-looking games coming up. So, if they keep the pace they're on, I don't expect them to. They're 6-1. If they say they go maybe what 15-5 in the conference, that's realistic at this point.
Yeah.
They get to the conference championship game, maybe then I think a 3 or 4 seed is very, very doable.
To me, I think the key is you want to get somewhere between 3 and 6. I think there is a difference. I don't want to play a 1 or 2 seed in the second round.
Yeah.
And, anything, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're pretty much playing a 1 or 2 seed in the second round.
Yeah, I just don't know if it matters that much anymore. I mean, you think about Caleb Love's North Carolina team that was an 8 seed, and they got to the national championship game, and they blew a big lead in that game. And NC State gets in and is 11. You've seen a couple of 1 seeds lose to 16s in the last few years. I just don't know if the seeding matters much anymore. And a team like this that tends to, get a little arrogant and take its foot off the gas, maybe they need to be wearing the road jerseys in these games a little more often. Maybe it would do them some good.
All right, fair enough. What's the realistic worst case seed, in your opinion, assuming they make the tournament?
Well, yeah, because worst case scenario would be they miss it altogether, which they
Right,
still could.
right, sure.
But yeah, I mean, play-in game, and they still have those in Dayton.
Yeah.
Go to Dayton. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's possible. I think they're probably they're a 6 or 7 right now. I think that's probably about where they end up. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
just talking about where we think, I think maybe bump them up to a 5, because they're already in net and in Ken Palm and a lot of other metrics. They're thought of pretty favorably, and they still haven't played a lot of the toughest teams on their schedule. They already played Duke, they played Wisconsin, UCLA, a couple teams in the Big 12, but again, the 3 best teams in the conference, they haven't played any of them yet. And they got 4 games against those teams coming up, and then probably 1 or 2 in the conference tournament as well. So lots of opportunities and games that, unlike in the Pac-12, if they lose, it's not necessarily going to hurt them. It can only help them in terms of seeding.
Saw this tweet by a guy who goes by Desert Swarm with a cactus in between. His handle is D1866429D. Quite a X handle, but so be it. And he said, day 3 of begging Desiree Reed Francois, please bring back the cactus on the court and the tip-off chant the band played before every game. Your thoughts on that? Are you buying that, or are you just saying whatever, I don't care?
It's not that big a deal, but I'm buying it. Yeah, I think Arizona's done a really good job of bringing back the cactus logo in a lot of different areas. You see that you see the coaches wear it all the time. I mean, they put it on their helmet last year for football, even though, the best thing about football season last year were some of the different helmet variations. So I would love to see that again. But I think, for those who don't remember the tip-off chant, it's this chorus that the band plays over and over before a game, instead of hearing a bunch of techno music or whatever before a game. It was a very Arizona thing. If you go back and watch some game, it was before each half as well. and the crowd would chant along with it, and it was just like a unique era. Like I don't know any other college basketball program that had something like that, like going into a game. I want to say Greg Byrne did away with it, but I would love to see them bring that back. I mean, I'm not one who thinks you have to bring back all their traditions. I mean, times change, but that would be a cool thing. And as far as the cactus logo, I mean, put that on as many things as possible because fans absolutely love that logo, and I'm happen to be one of them.
Yeah, the tip-off chant, I don't care about as much. The cactus logo, I'm all for it. I think that's great.
That's fair.
So, speaking of football, Barstool Big 12 and Heartland Sports. Heartland Sports, pretty good website. And they came out with their early rankings for Big 12, now that football season is done. One of them has Arizona 15th. The other one has Arizona dead last heading into next year. Are you buying or selling those rankings?
Well, it's hard for me to know just because I'm not up to speed on what the other teams in the Big 12, especially toward the bottom, are doing in terms of the transfer portal and if they're expected to be any better next year. So it's hard for me we're not in the football season yet next year, so it's hard. But if the question is Arizona going to be worse than next year? I think the answer is no. I'll sell that. I think Arizona could be better next season and finish with the same record, maybe a game better. Arizona didn't just lose 8 games this past season. They got their butt kicked in most of them. Okay, there's different kinds of 4-8s or 6-6s. You could see Arizona improve next year, but lose the same amount of games while being more competitive in those games. Kind of like what we saw in Jed Fish's second season. Arizona could go 4-8 and not lose a game by more than a couple touchdowns, and maybe lose a couple by a field goal or a touchdown. So I don't agree that they're going to be worse next year. I think they're probably going to be better. You go into a second season with a new head coach. I think they improved their coaching staff. They're bringing in guys, not only talented guys in the transfer portal, but guys who are like their guys, not the previous regime's guys. I think all that matters. So I think my early prediction is that Arizona will be better in terms of talent, in terms of being competitive. In terms of record and the standings in the Big 12, they'll probably end up about where they were. But I don't think they're going to I don't think they're going to go into the season as the worst team or even the second worst team in the conference.
I think they very well will be ranked somewhere between 14 and 16 in the preseason poll. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Because we saw ASU, where were they ranked? Between 14 and 16, they end up in the college football playoff and probably should have made the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying Arizona's going to do that because they don't have Cam Scatterbo on their team, and they don't have anyone close to Cam Scatterbo.
Or T-Mac is gone.
Right, or T-Mac. But I think this team should be better. However, it'd be nice to actually get the Big 12 schedule to come out, and probably as I say that,
nice?
They'll probably release it tomorrow after we put out this podcast.
We're right before we do, yeah.
But I really would like to break down, because I think the order of games matter. Where do the home games? Arizona has a tricky schedule. They don't miss some of the bad teams. They miss some of the bad teams, and they play a lot of the good teams. So we're going to find out. I think it's a tougher schedule on paper than it was this year. I think the Big 12, Texas Tech has been phenomenal in the transfer portal.
Oh, yeah. They're the number one in the country, according to the 24/7, yeah.
Yeah, West Virginia got Rich Rod, and Rich Rod makes teams better. They'll have their off years, but he makes teams better. So, I don't think Arizona plays them this year. I think they play next year. But at Cincinnati, that Cincinnati team probably should be better. We saw that was one of ASU's losses this year. So we'll break that down. I just saw those rankings. I thought those were fairly interesting. Now let's talk about rankings on the other end of the spectrum. Which team has the higher realistic expectations in your mind, Shane? Men's tennis, who's number 6. Baseball, who in some polls is as high as 12. Or softball, who is in some preseason polls as high as number 12. Which one are you buying for this as the highest expectations? Yeah,
men's tennis team's already gotten off to a good start. I think this was true probably last year as well. They're probably the best active team on campus. And it's hard to argue with what Clancy Shields has done there. And he's been on the show. And I know it's not the sexiest sport to talk about, but he's turned Arizona into a powerhouse men's tennis program. We're a men's tennis program. We're a women's triathlon program now, or school, I should say. But yeah, in terms of baseball and softball, baseball has done a pretty good job of reloading. They lost a lot of good pitching from last year, but they brought a lot of talented players in. And softball's got some really good freshmen, some of the top 100 freshmen in the country, and I think like 2 or 3 of the top 100 returning players, based on depending on what metric you look at. Would definitely love to talk to both Chip Hale and Caitlin Lowe before the season start. But I think men's tennis, and then actually saw a stat that since 2021 in terms of RPI, baseball RPI, Arizona is actually 25th in RPI since 2021. So it may be a little higher than you might think. And I know that the end of the season was not what we wanted for Arizona baseball, but you really have to appreciate what Chip Hale did with that program. We were talking about, is he the right guy for the job? And then they go on and win the regular season and conference tournament, the final Pac-12 as we know it tournament. So softball team, that they're always top 25. They haven't gotten back to where they were in the peak of the Mike Andrea era, and we'll have to wait and see if Caitlin was able to do that. Men's tennis team is the juggernaut of the 3, and they came very close to advancing to the Elite 8 last year. They lost a really tight series of matches to Columbia on the road. But they could, women's triathlon team got us a national championship, and men's tennis team might get us another one. I think they're that good.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to trust you on this one. The only thing I want to say about this topic, I really appreciate what Chip Hale did last year, winning the last Pac-12 regular season title and winning the postseason tournament. But he has not proven thus far that he can get us anywhere in the NCAA tournament. For that reason, Caitlin Lowe got Arizona to Oklahoma City once. Yeah. So I'm going to put men's tennis 1, softball 2, baseball 3.
That's fair. And if you look at the rankings, the rankings tend to agree with you. I think that's perfectly fair.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
I will say real quick though, depending on what poll you look at, Arizona is either the first or the second ranked team in the Big 12. So it'd be something for Arizona to win the final, as we knew it, Pac-12's championship, and then go on and win the first Big 12 champ. But season hasn't started yet. We'll see, but that would be awesome.
That'd be cool. All right, no argument there. Want to hit on our sponsor. Always glad to have Harrah's Auction. They're throwing a Super Bowl party. Check them out. It's at doors open at 4 p.m. It's at the Event Center at Harrah's Auction Casino on Sunday, February 9th. Everyone's invited. Come enjoy the game and winning game day spread, including wings, hot dogs, hamburgers, and more. Event entry is complimentary, but if you want to purchase an unlimited food package, go to Ticketmaster.com and look up Harrah's Auction Super Bowl Party. Coming up next, it is Mr. Triple Double, Matt Muehlebach, here on Wildcat Country. All right, Shane, it's time to have our buddy, the great Mr. Triple Double, Matt Muehlebach, on with us again here on Wildcat Country. All right, Matt, we had you on earlier in the season. Arizona is now 6-1 in the Big 12. I mean, I considered them dead coming into conference play. Where did this come from? And are you a believer in this team going forward?
Yeah, after that UCLA game, what was the lead they blew? Was it, I don't know,
14?
13, 14?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And late second half and go to 4-5. I mean, it was rough. I'd say I'm mildly surprised, but I also thought they had a good team, and we've seen some guys step up that I think maybe we weren't sure of. I think the guy that comes to mind the most to me is Henry Vasar. Mm-hmm. Certainly Carter Bryant has played really well, I think, in the stints that he has played. But I think, forget me talking about individuals, I just think they've played better as a team. And, Tommy did a really good job, I thought, embracing their not playing well at the time and their issues and said, look, we got to be better as a team. I did the game, I think, after they lost UCLA or maybe the next one. And what he told me, the quote was, we've got to unlock our passing. We got to unlock our teamwork, and being really unselfish. That's been, our calling card for 3 years here. And they've done that. So I think that's, to me, one of the major keys.
And Matt, thanks again for joining us. And like we talked about before we started recording, I may have to blur out that hat because all my dad's side of the family's from Western New York, and they're not Chiefs fans this week. But I appreciate you joining us. The starting lineup, Matt, a lot of people are clamoring for one move in particular is for Trey Townsend to go off the. He had a great game against Oklahoma State, but a lot of fans want to see Carter Bryant start in favor of Trey Townsend. Your thoughts on that and any other potential tinkers to the starting lineup that you might consider?
Well, let me first address the Chiefs, and I got it because you got family in Buffalo, man. I got my boy Glenn Parker that I was in school with, football player at the U of A, 4 Super Bowls with the Bills. He actually played a year with the Chiefs too, so he's got a little Chiefs blood in him. But I kind of think that what's going to happen is I would actually, I hate to say this, I want the Chiefs to win more than anything, but if they do not win, I will be happy for the Bills. I will say that.
And our guy John Fina as well, who I think was in
And
Buffalo
Fina,
last game.
I know, I totally forgot Fina. In fact,
There you
Fina
go.
was the guy in the second class I ever had at U of A. I saw John Fina in my history class, 101. And Fina was holding court there. He knew everybody. He was like the man. I'm like, I was this nobody. I barely knew 2 people, and Fina was holding court. But anyway, it should be a game for the ages. I'm hoping.
Should be.
I got my smoker ready to go. So I wish you guys were in town. I'm cooking every type of meat possible.
There we go. Sign us up, Matt. We might have to drive. Might have to drive down for that one. Yeah.
If you're in town, call me. Call me if you're in town. But no, I think that's a tough one. Look, I think Carter Bryant is certainly in the long run better than Trey Townsend, and I think it's funny because he's a 3 that's playing the 4. And when they say, I remember, I think I was even the one saying they went small with Carter at the 4, and he's actually taller than Trey, I think. And but I think, look, starting doesn't mean anything to me. And I remember the Bulls back in the 80s and 90s. They used to start Bill Cartwright, and they would run a play for him, like the first play. He'd play his minutes, but it was just sort of how they constructed the starting lineup. And I get it. Like, Trey's an older guy. I think Carter's learning on defense. I think they're trying to challenge him in some areas. And, that might change. They might put him in the lineup any day. I don't think and I think what you're seeing, I'd be curious. I forgot to look last night how many minutes Carter got in that game. I should look at that. But I think it feels like he's getting more minutes. He's getting more comfortable in the defensive end, but he's crazy talented. I trust. Look, here's my take on those things. Practice, you got to earn it in practice. And sometimes coaches, even though Khalid Reeves started behind me. And by the end of the season, I think he was as good or probably becoming better than me when I was a senior.
But did he have a triple-double?
He did not have that.
There you
go. He did not have that. And and actually Khalid probably wasn't. I hate to say this, like Khalid probably wasn't as good as me in sort of all areas of the game by the end of the year. By that summer, he was 10 times better than me because he learned how to play, Yeah. So I don't worry about it. I would like to see Carter get as many minutes as possible, let me put it that way, in whatever form or fashion. And Trey played really well last night. That was his best game as a Wildcat for sure.
Yeah, no, it was very good to see. Another concern of mine, I feel like I'm dumping on them. They're 6-1 in Big 12 play, but I just talking about, us basketball fans are, we always fret about the team. They're playing late game situations. Texas Tech, that game drove me crazy because they didn't play their best, but they kind of played their game for a long time. Then the last few minutes, they just start chucking threes. And, that's not, they can hit them like we saw against OK State, but that's not their game. They don't have a lot of Matt Muehlebach or Matt Othics on that team. Any concerns from you about just this team getting to close late game situations and being able to finish?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a couple things about that. I think the Texas Tech game, they kind of collapsed, right? I think they felt there was a feeling that once it got to 6 or 8 or 9 or whatever it was, okay, we're probably not going to win this game. Yeah. And so I think it was, I remember golfers sometimes, they have a putt to win the US Open, they miss it, and then they miss the 4-footer coming back for bogey, and then they double bogey. It's like you kind of lose your concentration. Which I think they did, and we're going to lose this. They hung in there the whole game. I thought they were going to win the game.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me, I'm gonna use a comparison to the Warriors. The Warriors sometimes struggle at the end of games because they have Steph, who can certainly score, and has been shown to be one of the greatest clutch players in history. But he's sometimes doesn't have, the stuff that we've seen in the Olympics. And if he doesn't have it every night, he doesn't have like a second guy that's Clay or the old Draymond. And I think this Arizona team is a team that's a collective team. And so when you get to the end of the game, they don't really have a guy that's Sean Elliott, that's Miles Simon, that's, Mike Bibby, that you just, Salim Stoudemire. They just played Oklahoma State. And obviously we know the great shot Salim hit to get to the Elite Eight in 2005, whatever that was.
Yeah, we used to talk about the game after that.
Yeah. I don't think they have that. And so you have to, and I think that's something Tom is probably going to work with them. It's easier to get buckets in the first half or 20 minutes ago and 18 minutes ago in the second half. There just isn't the same sort of intensity and pressure when teams lock in the 3 minutes ago in the game. So it's harder to get looks normally. I mean, even if you have Salim Stoudemire, it's harder to get looks. People lock in, but it's even harder when you don't have that one guy, or they don't really have like Trey's a little bit this, but they don't have a post guy. You just throw it into, Sean Rooks when I was playing, and just let him go to work.
Right.
So they get everything off of each other. And so in those situations, when it gets harder, the lane gets tougher, the defense gets tougher. They have to work harder at being even better execution wise.
So Matt, I'm looking at Arizona's metrics, and you probably understand these more than I do. And being a broadcaster and how the heck do all these metrics from Ken Palm to ESPN's BPI? Why do they have Arizona so good? They're 3-6 against quality teams, 9-0 against non-quality teams. But what am I missing here that Arizona should be ranked that high with limited quality wins? Let's say.
Well, I think because, the losses are against really quality teams. Duke's the best, in my opinion. Duke's the best team in the country, and it is. I don't really think it's close. I know people say Auburn or, I actually think Duke's the best team, and I think Houston's the second best team. I think those are the two best teams in the country. By the way, I watched Houston the other night. Their defense is savage. No. It reminds me of when I played against UNLV in 1990 and 91 in that era. It's incredible. And that game is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah. Houston just destroyed Utah as we're talking.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you better be unbelievably strong with the ball. It is going to be, it's one of the best half court defense I've ever seen, like in the last 20 years. But I just think, again, they lose to Duke. That's an incredible loss because they're probably the first or second best team in the country. UCLA has a really good, Ken Palm and probably dropped a little bit the last couple of weeks. But everybody they lost to is top 50. They lost an OT game. I don't know where they are in the luck stat. That'd be interesting.
In Ken Palm, they're 258. Yeah,
in Ken Palm, I thought they were sub 300. That's moved up a little bit.
So it's moved up. So they're really low on the luck piece. I just think you look at their numbers. They're top 15 in offense. They're top 30 defense. You combine those two things, the metrics are going to really like you if you're that. I mean, I haven't looked at this, but I don't know how many teams are in the top 30 of both of those categories. I bet it's less than 5.
I'd have to look. Yeah, it's a good point. Arizona 16th in offensive rating, 29th in defensive rating. By the way, they're 16th in Ken Palm. UCLA is 31st. Isn't that kind of surprising to you, though?
Well, again, I think they took into the metrics of how close that game was. Could have gone either way. West Virginia first game could have gone either way. Oklahoma could have gone either way. I mean, we could be sitting here. What's their record right now? Whatever it is, they could be 3 games better on both, the win and better on the loss column. So I think the computer sees that and they see those numbers. They have good rebound. They have good offensive rebounding numbers. I'd like to see their defensive rebounding numbers get a little better. And I think the number that we all see, is the 3-point number. That's the one. It's gotten better, but I'd like to see that get even better than that.
So this is kind of a weird one for you and Shane, but I got to ask, you are Mr. Triple-Double at Arizona. You're the first player, obviously, ever to get a triple-double. of anyone on this year's team, who would be most likely, in your opinion, to register a triple-double?
That's a really good question. Probably, I mean, right off the top of my head, it's Jaden Bradley. Just because he's the one that has the ball in his hands the most, so he can get the double right off the bat. He rebounds the ball pretty well. That to me is the guy that jumps to mind. I bet you have an answer, Eric. What's your?
I mean, the guy that, and I know he hasn't had more than 4 assists in a game, but I feel like Henry Vasar could just be one of those guys against a bad team. He'd get his 10 points, get his 10 boards, and then kick out a few, and Caleb's knocking him down. I mean, it seems unlikely. Bradley or Vasar would be my picks. What do you think, Shane?
Well, Vasar's going to get it. Might be with the blocks instead of the assists. But yeah, I don't think it. I mean, there's no Andre Iguodala on this team, so I mean,
tough one, right? When I was thinking about it, it's like I couldn't come up with. Jaden was the guy.
Maybe Jaden Bradley, maybe Caleb Love. Yeah, that's about it.
Caleb could, but I think Jaden just would because he has the ball. He's the most likely to get 10 assists.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Caleb, Matt, because it's a nice segue. Because he is great against average or bad teams this year. Against good teams, not so much. I mentioned a stat in our first segment that he's shooting just over 20% from the field in Arizona's 7 toughest games this year, and he hasn't made more than 3 field goals in any of them. Is there something to that? Is there something to Caleb? He could beat up on the bad teams, but what do you think?
I don't necessarily think so. Historically, he's been, he's had amazing games against good teams, right? You look at him last year at Oregon, he was phenomenal. You look at the biggest game of his career against UCLA in the Sweet 16, he was terrific when he had 30, whatever it was, 31 in the second half. He was terrific against Duke in the first game of the Final Four. He wasn't very good against Kansas in the last game. I think I will say this. I do think the better teams probably take away stuff in the lane. It's harder to score in the lane against better teams. It just is with anybody. And so he's got to make tougher shots from the outside. And if he doesn't shoot it well, it's a little bit tougher for him to get to the line. That's probably my best answer. Because he's capable, for him, I truly believe for him, like when I first saw him play, I kind of thought he's such a scorer and he's such a, volume shooter and he seemed almost like irreverent to like making or missing shots, right? It just, okay, I missed 3, I'm going to hit another one. That's the way I play, but he's human like all of us. I found this, I like it more, it like dawns on me more that we're all human. And when you see the ball go through the net, it just helps you. And you saw last night, he made 1 and it felt like he had made 9 in a row. Like his body language, he was heat checking. He heat checks. Like I was a player that might have heat checked after 3 makes. He heat checks after 1. He hits 1 and you can just see, and it's gone the other way too. He's struggled a little bit when he hasn't made his first or second shot. So I think that's important. And like I said, we're all human as players. I think the one good thing I like about him this year is I see players all the time. I've gone to some high school games recently, and I see players that miss shots, and it's unbelievable, like how fast it affects their defense and how fast it affects everything else they do. And for the most part, I've seen Caleb be pretty good, all the way around, even when he's missing shots. So I appreciate that about him. He's not perfect, he's a scorer. He's an offensive player. Like he doesn't come in to shut guys down necessarily, but he plays hard on the defensive end.
Yeah, and all his teammates have talked about what a good teammate he is, like unprompted. So that's definitely a good sign. I think he's definitely worked hard on other aspects of his game. I got 2 more questions. Yeah,
one quick thing on that. He comes across. He has a very like kind of, I would say stern, almost like serious, focused, intense look. I had never really talked to him much before games last year until one game I did. And the moment you talk to him, like he just starts smiling and laughing. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that was like right behind that stern look. He's a really easy dude to get along with, and he's funny, and I've had some good encounters with him. And I thought that was super cool. I just wanted to mention that.
No, it's great. No, it lines up with what his teammates have said about him. All right, two more for you, Matt. You mentioned you thought Houston was one of the best teams in the country. So you have. I was going to ask you who you thought the best team in the Big 12 was. So we got the answer to that, and they lead the Big 12 right now. Could you rank the top five in the Big 12?
Sure.
And does Arizona crack the top five for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's Houston. I think it's Iowa State. I think it's Kansas. Um, I mean, this may sound a little homerish, but I'm going to say Arizona 4. And I think the hardest one for me is Tech or Baylor. And I would have said Baylor, I think, before I saw the two games that Arizona played, but I would put Tech ahead of Baylor right now, just on what I saw. Now I know Baylor had a player hurt, one of their better players hurt. So I think those teams are kind of like they're pretty darn even. In my mind, I thought going into the season there were 5 teams. They were kind of like the elite 5, but Tech shown me a lot. I think they're in that top 5, or top 6, I should say. Now I think there's 6 teams, and again, there's another 4 through 6 that are pretty darn good too. That you just there's kind of like, to me now, the more I've seen this, there's like 3 levels of this conference. There's the top 6. And you guys, I should know this. Is it 16 in the conference now?
We got 16, yeah.
16. So it's top 6. I think there's another like 5 or 6. And then I think there's the last 4 or 5.
Yeah. Well, you got some fickle teams too, like West Virginia, which upsets Iowa State and then loses at home to ASU. So the ultimate kind of hangover game.
ASU's pretty good. ASU has some talent.
Yeah,
they play hard, and they have some pretty good talent.
So I think Eric Smuter right now.
They are so inconsistent. Watching them the other week against Central Florida, I mean, they don't play any defense, and every year it's the same story. Bobby Hurley can recruit talent, no doubt about that. His coaching, I mean, I'll bag on Tommy Lloyd here and there. Tommy Lloyd would run circles around Bobby Hurley as far as a coach, and we see it every year.
Well, usually I've been around that program a lot. What's interesting about them is they've gotten a lot of, some pretty good, like transfer guys, but a lot of them haven't really necessarily like been what I thought they would be. Some have, but typically what they do is they play really hard. Typically they play hard, and they don't give up. They fight. They're like Bobby. I mean. Yeah. They get after it, man. They just fight, and they're not afraid. The one thing about those teams, I mean, I didn't think they were even close to Arizona 2 years ago, and they came into McHale and won on that 70-foot shot, or not that far, whatever, 60-footer. But I think it's going to be fun this year because both teams. I mean, I think Arizona's better, but any college basketball, any team could beat each other. So
yeah, when there were 8 last week, there were 18 top 25 teams that lost or something like that. So it's
nuts.
All right, last question for you. I know we got Colorado first, but I'm going to hope that Arizona takes care of business against the Buffaloes at home. Looking ahead to the Iowa State game, I'm big game atmosphere at McHale. Iowa State is one of 2 teams that's in the Ken Palm top 10 in both offense and defense. Duke, the only team to beat Arizona home so far this year, is the other. Quick preview. What are some of the keys to victory for Arizona in that one?
They're so well, like you said, they're so balanced, right? They're good at both. But they almost lost to Texas Tech on the road, so they
should have. Yeah,
they should have. I think that's a good point. What stands out to me more than their offense, actually, is their defense. I think they're better defensively. And so to me, it's a little bit like Duke. I thought Arizona played pretty well against Duke defensively. And especially like for the first, 25 minutes. And then it got a little bit away from them, but their defense was good. They just couldn't score. And I'm curious to see how this Arizona team scores against Iowa State, against a great defensive team when it really matters. And I think part of the scoring issue early was the pieces of the puzzle were not fitting. And Tommy's done a great job. Tommy's move to put ADO or Deli or Del Orso or whatever we're calling him, whatever's nickname, into the starting lineup is one of the best moves in college basketball this year. It's to this date. It didn't, in a lot of ways, guys, it did not make sense. Against Duke, he looked like deer in headlights.
Mm-hmm.
He struggled to even hold on to the ball, like against that pressure. You wondered, he's played at Campbell. Yeah, he put up great numbers, and it didn't look right. And he played like a minute, like in the whole game. But so on paper and even watching, you're like, why would his move be after the UCLA game to start Delly at the 3? And it is a genius move because Delly's a great offensive player. He's really good. I don't care. Campbell, mid-major, Arizona, Big 12, he can flat out play offense. He can score. And this is the thing, he's gotten better on defense. He's a better defensive player today than he was 3 months ago. Tons better.
That's fair.
And now again, like you said earlier, he's no Iguodala, but he doesn't have to be. And I think the move to spread the team out, give him at least one really good shooter on that starting 5 has changed the dynamics, amazingly. And so I'm interested to see that Monday game, how they fare offensively.
All right, Matt. Last one from me. What is it a successful season for Arizona look like in your opinion? They lose. They go and they lose early on, so we have no expectations. Now they're 6-1 in the conference. In your opinion, we could say Arizona had a good season considering they got to what point?
Well, I think there's 3 seasons, right? There's 4 seasons. There's non-con, there's conference, there's the tiny season of the tournament, and then there's the real NCAA tournament, so the conference tournament. I think for them, look, non-con matters, and it wasn't great. Like they kind of underperformed for them. Conference has been great so far. I think if they finish top 5 in conference, it's a great season. And
Okay.
I don't, if they're 5th, I think it's a great season. I think they have the ability to do that because I think they're in the top 5. I ranked them 4 right now. But I think, I mean, whatever the tournament, conference tournament, great. Hopefully they do well. But the NCAA tournament, I think if they're top 4 in the conference, if they're top 5 in the conference, they should be like a 7 seed or higher in my mind. And if you're a 7 seed or higher, then you're playing a team that's pretty close to you. And I think if they could get, a win in the tournament and be competitive in the second round or get to the second weekend, I think it's a great season. And I think
Shane, what do you say? Do you agree with Matt?
If you're looking at it from just this season, yeah, I think that's probably fair considering their struggles. I mean, from a macro view, as an Arizona fan, is that acceptable season for most fans? No, that's not necessarily fair. But I mean, I feel like the luck is about to even out at some point. You're 1 or 2 seed, you get knocked out the first, second round or the Sweet 16, and then on the flip side, maybe you enter as a 6 or a 7, and then you make a deep run. I feel like they're only at maybe Matt. I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like every year there's maybe like half a dozen teams, maybe a couple more capable of winning the national championship. But I think there's at least a couple dozen every year capable of making the Final Four because you see some 8, 9, 10, 11 seeds get in. I saw NC State last year get in. I think it's really difficult to win those last 2 games. But getting to the Final Four, it's a matter of getting hot at the right time, and it just hasn't happened for Arizona the last, however long it's been now.
I think that's a good way to look at it, and I think they're in that mix. I think they're in that. They were ranked 9th to start the season. That was high for them, where they were to start the season because the pieces needed to get figured out by the team, by Tommy, by their whole group. They're getting them figured out. Are they top 5 in the country? Not yet. And will they get there? I don't. They could, but they got ways to go to get there. But I think they're a solid. I think the Ken Palm ranking of 16 is a solid number for them right now.
All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So I think Shane's point is correct. Like they could get to a Final Four, no doubt.
When you look at bonus question here. Think about 2008, 2009. Russ Pennell was coaching after Lute stepped aside. Arizona went 21-14, but got to the Sweet 16. That we would consider, okay, this was a team that wasn't really going anywhere. They got to the Sweet 16. To me, if Arizona gets to the Sweet 16 this year, I go, hey, great season. I'll take it.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I mean, hey, this is all like, it's a little bit reminiscent of life, right?
Yeah.
Expectations sometimes, if we have, tempered expectations, sometimes things are easier.
My wife always says our frustrations are a product of our expectations.
Yeah.
It's very
Matt,
true.
as always, great to catch up with you. Good luck to your Chiefs.
Mm.
I think based on the NFL's officiating, they won't need it, but you never know. Great to catch up with you, and we'll talk to you
Yeah.
soon, I'm sure.
You guys are funny because my expectations are I just want to have some good barbecue, and I'll go into the game thinking, it's all house money. And the second the game start, my expectations will become we have to win the Super Bowl or bust.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
All right, great to catch up with Matt. Glad to have him on the program once again. All right, it's time for picks. So we both nailed Ohio State covering the spread, even though it was kind of a backdoor cover after the way they blew it. So I won our college football picks 84-77. Thank you, Buckeyes, because at the start of the season, Shane, I was the only one. Now, Blair and I both had them in the championship game. I had Ohio State over Georgia. You had Oregon over Georgia. Blair had Georgia over Ohio State. So I will take my victory lap with the national championship from Ohio State.
Well, not only that, but you got yourself quite a parlay, the long game in that one, where you picked a couple of random college basketball games, then which I think someone mentioned that Trey Townsend actually had something to do with that, because you picked an Oakland game from last season, and then you picked the Dodgers to win the World Series, barf, but you got it right. Celtics to win the NBA Finals, and then the last piece of the parlay was Ohio State, and you resisted the temptation to cash out, and you made yourself quite a bit of money. Congratulations.
Thank you. For $16, I picked, this was, I think, March 9th or March 10th. I picked a couple of random teams. One of them was Oakland, where Trey Townsend was playing, and they won. We saw what they did in the tournament. And then James Madison, we saw what they did in the tournament as well. So I had those two teams in their conference tournaments. And then I added in the Celtics, who were, the favorite to win the NBA, and the Dodgers, who were the favorite to win baseball. And Ohio State was one of the favorites to win college football. But I felt like on paper, when you look at the rosters, this roster was really good. I liked the addition of Will Howard and got them at nearly 5-1. And that paid a nice 210-1 or so. So you never know. What I would recommend, put in your bets now. The ones that I did, if I'm just going to throw $10 bet, if you put in Oklahoma City to win the NBA, you put in the Dodgers, because they're signing everybody, to win MLB. I know that makes you sick, but I mean, we all know it's probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then throw in, there's no team to me that looks like the dominant team on paper for college football. I looked at Clemson as one to take a look at, like 18-1. I have one with Texas as well. I might throw in a Penn State, even though I don't trust James Franklin. But those are the three teams that I would probably circle. Some people want to look at South Carolina or Florida. I don't trust Billy Napier at Florida. But, those are fun bets. For $10, it gives you a whole season of excitement if you get that far. So that's what I recommend, giving that a whirl.
The moral of the story is definitely bet. Definitely bet your money. Yeah. What was the quote on The Simpsons? Is that gambling is the finest thing a man can do if he's good at it? Yeah.
I have my hits. I have my misses. A lot more misses than hits.
You're right,
but
more often than not.
But I have to celebrate. It was a good college football season for me. I picked him pretty good. All right.
Well done.
Let's get to college basketball. Shane, last week I nailed Vanderbilt over number 6 Tennessee.
You did.
I nailed Texas Tech to beat Arizona, and I had the Wildcats beating Oklahoma State by 10+ and covering the spread, which was 9.5. So I got 3 points. You got, unfortunately, none. But okay, we're going to take our shots this week. Give me a Big 12 unranked road win.
Yeah, both of these that we're about to pick, Eric, I knew what your picks were. One of them I've switched up just to be different. The other one I kept. This one I switched up because I don't really like any of them outside of the one you picked. But just to be different, I'll go with Cincinnati over BYU. Cincinnati's been pretty bad lately, but they got to turn it around at some point. And they did beat ASU, the ASU team that beat West Virginia. So I'll go with the Bearcats just to be different.
All right. I am going to go with Baylor over Utah. Utah is not very good. Baylor needs wins badly. All right. How about a non-Big 12 ranked upset?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going back and forth on between Villanova over Marquette or Xavier over UConn, but give me Sean Miller's Musketeers to get the upset. They've won. I think they just lost to St. John's. It was a close game. A ranked St. John's team, yeah, in overtime actually. But they had won 3 in a row, and losing in overtime to a ranked team on the road isn't bad. If Sean Miller knows one thing, it's how to beat a Hurley, right? So I'm going to go with Xavier to stay hot and get the upset. Yep.
How about that? I'm going to change mine up in that case, Shane. I'm going to go with Rutgers, which has 2 players who are potential top 10 picks over number 8 Michigan State on Saturday. So let's kind of switch that up and have a little bit of fun with it. Now let's talk Arizona, Colorado at Arizona. I mean, this one should be a blowout. I'm going to say Arizona wins this game by 13. So I don't know what the spread will be, but I would say probably around there. I think Arizona will take care of business. What do you think?
Yeah, I got a lot more to say about the next one, but I'll keep this one short. Obviously, this is a game Arizona should win. Colorado's not a good rebounding team. They're last in the Big 12 in turnovers per game and turnover margin. Arizona's actually been great in that category in Big 12 play. They're averaging fewer than 10 turnovers a game. I think this game is going to look sort of similar to some of the other home games Arizona's played so far. They build a big lead, maybe let it slip a couple times, but they end up winning, but sort of leave us with a bad taste in our mouths. I'll say I have Arizona by 14. So we don't. So watch the spread be 13.5, and they'll end up winning by less than that.
All right, I like that. Now I'm going to let you talk about this one. It's Iowa State, who's number 3 in the country, at Arizona. Always hard to win on the road, Shane.
Well, so Iowa State actually has the best turnover margin in the Big 12. They're the number 1 scoring offense in the conference. They have the best field goal percentage in the conference. Like Arizona, they're an elite 2-point shooting team, not great from 3. Curtis Jones for Iowa State has been outstanding in conference play. He's averaging 22 points in his last 5 games, shooting 51% from the field in those games. Caleb Love needs to start showing up versus good teams, like we talked about with Matt Muehlebach. Arizona's gotten away with it so far at times, but it's not going to continue against teams like Iowa State, Houston, and Kansas. Against Duke, Wisconsin, UCLA, and non-conference, and their 4 toughest Big 12 games so far. Texas Tech, Baylor, West Virginia, Cincinnati. Caleb Love went 20 of 97 from the field in those games, 20.6%. He didn't make more than 3 field goals in any of them. He attempted at least 10 field goals in all of them. Every other game this year, Caleb Love is 53% from the field, including 56.5% against the 3 worst Big 12 teams that Arizona's faced so far, which is OK State, UCF, and TCU. So Arizona does a lot of things well. Like I mentioned, they're keeping their turnovers down. They've had 10 or fewer in 5 of their 7 Big 12 games. They only had 8 at Oklahoma State. They're also 16th in the country in offensive rebounding rate. They're 32nd in the country in opponent field goal percentage at 40%. Houston, by the way, is number 1 in that category. I'm interested also to see what happens between Iowa State and ASU in Tempe a couple days before this game. We've seen a lot of Pac-12 teams over the years take this trip and gear up for a showdown at McHale and then completely overlook ASU, and then they get swept on this trip. And ASU just beat the team that Iowa State had just lost to, so you never know. I'm going to wrap this up, I promise. Bottom line for me, I think this is going to be a fairly close game. Both teams are capable of making some quick runs. If it's a close game, I just don't trust Arizona in late close game situations until they give me a reason to change my mind. So I'm going to take Iowa State to win, and I'll take them by, let's say, 6 points.
All right. I'm going Iowa State by 5. I think this is an elite team. I don't know. When you look at Arizona's wins this year, who have they beaten that you're like, this is a really good team? Yeah. Do they have a win?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. This would be it, obviously. This and Houston and Kansas in the last game of the regular season. But I haven't seen anything from Arizona that shows me that they are ready to win a game of this caliber. Arizona's a good team.
I agree.
But Arizona's far from great.
Yeah.
And I think this is where Iowa State, think the Wildcats can keep it close. I don't think it's a blowout like or uncompetitive like the Duke game was. Yeah. But I think that Iowa State pulls away and wins the game. Arizona may get a late 3-pointer. Iowa State by 5. Yeah. I hate to do it. No. I hope I'm wrong. Would love to be talking about an upset when we record this next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, if you take an average of our 2 picks, we're actually have the margin identical. I have them beating Colorado by 1 more point than you do, and then vice versa for the Iowa State game. The last thing I'll say is that you look going into the season, you were told Arizona is going to hold UCLA to 57 points, Duke to 69 points, Texas Tech on the road to 70. You would have thought Arizona would have won at least 2 of those games, right?
Yeah.
And Arizona, I think, is second or tied for second in the Big 12 in points per game. But they tend to fall apart offensively against better teams. And so, again, until that changes, and the Iowa State is in the top 10 in both in KenPom offense and defense, until that changes, I just can't pick them to win this kind of game.
Shane, let us hope that next week when we do the next episode of Wildcat Country, we're getting close to what are we, almost at 250 here? We're 240 something.
I think this next one is 242. I'll have to double check. We're getting close.
All right. Well, we'll try to get something to give away for 250
for sure.
in a couple months. But I hope we're celebrating in episode 243 or whatnot. I'm not there yet. I mean, listen. I hope I'm wrong here. Let's see. Prove me wrong, Wildcats. Great to catch up with Matt Muehlebach. Really appreciate him joining us. For Shane Dale, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.